Every marriage has its secrets. Some are small, like hidden snacks in a kitchen cabinet or a private journal tucked away in a drawer. Others, however, are far more dangerous, so dangerous that once uncovered, they can destroy everything built over decades. Laura believed her marriage to Michael was steady, if not perfect. After 20 years together, they had created a life filled with predictable routines. Morning coffee at the same table, long commutes in opposite directions, evenings with their teenage children. There were arguments, of course, but nothing unusual. At least, that's what Laura thought. She trusted her husband. She trusted the foundation they had built. But trust, as Laura would soon learn, is fragile. Sometimes it shatters, not with a loud crash, but with the quiet ping of an email notification. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. Laura was sorting through bills on their shared laptop when she noticed a message in Michael's inbox, one he had forgotten to delete. The subject line read, "Your monthly statement is ready." Curious, she clicked. It wasn't from their joint bank. It was from another institution, one she had never heard Michael mention before. Her pulse quickened as she opened the statement. There it was, a bank account under Michael's name, holding thousands of dollars. More alarming than the balance, however, were the transactions. Regular withdrawals. Transfers to names Laura didn't recognize. Repeated patterns that stretched back years. Laura froze. A chill ran through her. Why would Michael keep a secret? Account. Why hide this from her? At that moment, her mind began spinning through possibilities, none of them innocent. What began as a single click on a forgotten email was about to unravel the truth about her husband, her marriage, and the life she thought she knew. The hidden account was only the beginning. The transactions revealed everything Laura sat at. The kitchen table, staring at the screen as if the numbers might rearrange themselves into something harmless if she just looked long enough. But they didn't. Each line on the statement felt like a cut, slicing through 20 years of trust. Transfers, withdrawals, cash deposits. All in amounts too deliberate to be mistakes, too frequent to be random. Her first instinct was denial. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe Michael just wanted a personal account. Maybe he didn't think it mattered. But the longer she studied the transactions, the less convincing those excuses became. One name appeared again and again in the recipient field. Sophia K. Laura didn't know anyone by that name, and she was certain Michael had never mentioned her. Laura's hands trembled as she scrolled. The payments were consistent, monthly, almost like support, rent, tuition, childcare. The thought made her stomach churn. She slammed the laptop shut, as if closing it would erase the reality staring back at her. That evening, she tried to act normal when Michael came home. He walked through the door, kissed her cheek, dropped his briefcase by the couch, and asked about dinner, the same as always. But Laura couldn't hear his words without imagining every dollar that had slipped from their life into someone else's hands. "Are you okay?" he asked, noticing her stiffness. "I'm fine," she lied quickly, forcing a smile. But she wasn't fine, not even close. For the next several days, Laura lived a double life. Outwardly, she remained the same wife and mother, cooking, cleaning, chatting with neighbors, attending her daughter's school play. But inside, her mind was consumed by the bank account. She logged in every night after Michael went to bed, watching as new transactions appeared. Small amounts repeated. Always to the same woman. The questions multiplied. Who was Sophia? Why was Michael giving her money? Was it an affair? Secret? Child, something even darker? Laura couldn't ask outright. If she confronted him too soon, he might shut everything down, close the account, erase the evidence, bury the truth deeper. She needed more. One night, after Michael fell asleep on the couch with the television still flickering, Laura crept to his briefcase. She rifled through folders, receipts, and old work papers, searching for a clue. Most of it was ordinary. But tucked between two thick files was a single crumpled note, an address scrawled in Michael's handwriting. No name, just an address in a part of the city Laura rarely visited. Her chest tightened. Was this where Sophia lived? Laura folded the paper and slipped it into her pocket. The decision had already formed in her mind. She would go there. She would find out who this woman was, what connection she had to her husband, and why thousands of dollars had vanished from their savings to her hands. The next morning, Laura dropped her daughter at school, then drove across town. The address led her to a quiet residential block lined with aging apartment buildings. She parked a few houses away and sat in the car, heart pounding. Her eyes fixed on the building. Then she saw him, Michael. He emerged from the very building she had been staring at, his shoulders hunched, his head down. He glanced around quickly before walking to his car parked nearby. He didn't notice her. He didn't see the way her face drained of color, the way her entire world tilted on its axis. Laura gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles whitened. Whatever he was hiding, she was closer to the truth now. But was she ready to see it? Laura's heart wouldn't stop racing as she sat in her car, watching Michael drive away from the apartment building. The image of him slipping out of that doorway burned into her mind. He hadn't looked like the confident man she thought she knew. He looked guilty, nervous, almost like a stranger. She could have turned around then, gone home, pretended none of this was happening. But pretending wouldn't erase the account, the transactions, or the name that haunted her every night. She needed answers, even if they broke her. The following week, Laura returned to the building. She waited in her car across the street, hidden behind a pair of oversized sunglasses. Hours ticked by, but her patience was rewarded. Around dusk, Michael arrived again. This time, he carried a paper bag, like takeout. He buzzed into the building. Without hesitation, Laura's chest constricted. He wasn't visiting a colleague or handling business. He was comfortable, here too comfortable. Moments later, a woman appeared at the window of the second floor. She drew back the curtain, letting in the fading sunlight. Laura studied her closely. Mid-30s, dark hair tied back, delicate features. She wasn't a stranger from a nightclub or a fleeting distraction. Settled dot then. The curtain shifted again. A small child ran into view, clutching a stuffed bear. The woman scooped him up, kissed his forehead, and laughed. Laura's world crumbled in that instant. Her vision blurred as tears welled in her eyes. A child, a woman, a secret home. The monthly transactions suddenly made sense. Food, support. Michael wasn't just hiding an affair. He was supporting a family. Her stomach twisted violently and she gripped the steering wheel to keep herself grounded. 20 years of marriage, of shared memories and promises, now seemed like a carefully constructed facade. Was she the other woman all along? She drove home in a daze. That night, when Michael returned, she watched him closely. He smiled, kissed her on the cheek, and asked about dinner like nothing was wrong. Laura almost screamed. How could he look her in the eye with such casual ease? The anger bubbled inside her, hot and relentless. She wanted to demand answers right there in the kitchen, in front of the kids if necessary. But something in her stopped. If Michael had been lying for this long, would one confrontation force him to admit the truth? Or would he simply cover his tracks better, pushing the truth even further out of reach? Laura kept her silence, but her resolve hardened. She needed undeniable proof before she could confront him. Over the next few days, she planned. She made excuses to leave work early, claiming dentist appointments or errands. Instead, she drove back to the apartment. Each time she saw Michael. Sometimes he brought groceries. Other times he simply stayed for hours. Always with the same woman, always with the child. The hardest part wasn't watching him go inside, it was watching him leave. He walked out of that building with a lighter step, as if the weight of the world lifted from his shoulders. Then he came home to her, carrying that same calm expression, as if he hadn't been living a second life just miles away. One evening, Laura couldn't take it anymore. She waited until Michael left, then got out of her car and walked to the apartment door. Her legs trembled as she climbed the stairs to the second floor. She paused outside the door she had seen him enter countless times. Her hand hovered over the doorbell. She wasn't ready, but when would she ever be? Finally, she pressed it. The door opened and the woman from the window stood there, her eyes wide with shock. For a moment, neither spoke. Then the child toddled into view, holding the stuffed bear, looking curiously at Laura. Laura's throat tightened. She didn't need Michael's words. She didn't need explanations. The truth stood right in front of her in the form of a laughing child with his father's eyes. The silence between Laura and the woman stretched painfully long. The child clutched the stuffed bear and stared at her, his eyes wide and curious. Laura's breath caught in her throat the boy's eyes, the same shade of deep green as Michael's, made her stomach lurch. There was no denying it. Finally, the woman stepped aside, her voice trembling. "Do you want to come in?" Laura hesitated, every instinct screaming to run, to escape this nightmare. But something stronger, an aching need for the truth, pushed her across the threshold. The apartment smelled of fresh laundry and faintly of lavender. Toys were scattered across the living room floor. Family photos hung on the walls. Photos of the woman, the boy, and, in several, Michael himself. Laura froze, staring at the smiling face of her husband standing beside them. His arm draped casually across the woman's shoulders, holding the boy in his arms. He looked happy, so genuinely happy. Laura's knees buckled and she sank into the nearest chair. Her chest tightened as if the walls were closing in. "Who are you?" she whispered. Her voice cracked. The woman sat opposite her, clutching her hands. Together. "My name is Sophia, and I think you already know who this is." She looked toward the child, who had curled up on the rug, humming softly to himself. Laura's throat went dry. "How long?" Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "Since before you. Michael and we were together once. It ended badly, but then I found out I was pregnant. He didn't know at first. When I told him, he was already with you." The words hit Laura like blows. Her pulse pounded in her ears. "So all these years he's been helping us," Sophia said quickly. "Paying rent, school, everything. He said he couldn't tell you. He said it would destroy his marriage, his family. He thought he was protecting everyone by keeping us apart." Laura's lips curled in bitter disbelief. Protecting us? By living a double life? By lying to me for 20 years? Sophia lowered her head. "I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt you, but what could I do? He's the father of my child. My son deserves support. Michael has always been there for him. Even if it meant keeping secrets from you." Tears stung Laura's eyes, but anger burned hotter. She thought back to every night Michael came home late, every unexplained trip, every odd mood he brushed off. For years, she had believed him, trusted him. And all the while, he was living another life just a few miles away. Laura stood, her voice trembling with rage. He had a choice. Could have told me. He could have been honest. Instead, he made me live a lie. Sophia's tears spilled over, her face pale. "I know. I've begged him to tell you, but he never could. He said he loved you too much to lose you." Laura laughed bitterly, the sound sharp and hollow. "Love? Don't talk to me about love. Love doesn't look like this." She gestured to the photos, the toys, the life her husband had built in secret. Sophia flinched, but didn't argue. The boy, sensing the tension, crawled into his mother's lap, clutching her tightly. Laura watched him, her heart breaking in ways she couldn't describe. None of this was his fault. He was innocent. For a fleeting moment, compassion flickered inside her. But it was quickly drowned by the tidal wave of betrayal. She stumbled out of the apartment, her legs barely carrying her down the stairs. The cold evening air slapped her face, but did nothing to clear the fog in her mind. She sat in her car, hands shaking violently as she gripped the wheel. Images spun through her head, Michael holding another child. laughing with another woman, building a secret life that had stolen her marriage from beneath her feet. She thought of the bank account, the steady stream of money leaving their savings while she clipped coupons and budgeted for their children's college fund. By the time she drove home, her fury had crystallized into resolve. She wouldn't confront Michael with half-truths. She would gather every piece of evidence, the account statements, the photos, the address. She would strip away every lie he had wrapped around her and force him to face the destruction he had caused. When Michael walked through the door that night, smiling as though nothing had changed, Laura stared at him with new eyes. He wasn't her husband anymore. He was a stranger wearing Michael's face. And she knew the confrontation that was coming would tear their world apart. Laura barely slept that night. She lay awake in the darkness, her heart pounding, the echoes of Sophia's words replaying in her head. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the photographs, Michael's arms around another woman, his smile, radiating a warmth Laura hadn't felt from him in years. By dawn, exhaustion had settled into her bones, but her determination burned fiercer than ever. She needed the whole truth, not just fragments. At the kitchen table, she spread out the bank statements once more. It's time she read each transaction with sharpened eyes. Rent payments, school tuition, grocery stores she didn't recognize. The same addresses repeating month after month. It was all so methodical, so deliberate, as if Michael had built a second household, with the same care he once promised to devote to their shared future. But then something new caught her attention. Among the predictable expenses, there were larger withdrawals, thousands of dollars transferred every few months to an account she hadn't seen before. She scribbled down the account number, her hands trembling. Why would Michael need yet another hidden account? Curiosity hardened into dread. Laura drove to the bank later that morning, her chest tight as she asked to review the linked accounts under Michael's name. The banker, oblivious to the storm raging inside her, pulled up the details. On the screen, Laura's stomach dropped. This second account was far larger than the first, well over $100,000. And unlike the regular payments to Sophia, these funds were tied to legal services, property deeds, and something that made Laura's blood run cold. Retainer fee for a divorce attorney. She gripped the edge of the desk, her knuckles white. A divorce attorney. Michael hadn't just been supporting another family. He had been planning, preparing, quietly, secretly. He was building the financial and legal groundwork to walk away from her altogether. Laura forced a smile for the banker, thanked him for his time, and stumbled back into the blinding sunlight outside. The world seemed suddenly hostile, every sound too sharp, every color too bright. She sat in her car, clutching the paperwork, her breath shallow. The betrayal wasn't just emotional now. It was tangible, written into contracts and transactions, woven into plans she had never been meant to discover. All those late nights when Michael had claimed to be working, the moments when he'd grown distant, detached, the sudden concern about assets, the unusual questions about the house title, all of it clicked into place. He hadn't simply been cheating. He had been preparing to erase her from his life. When Michael came home that evening, Laura watched him from across the room. He placed his keys in the bowl by the door, loosened his tie, kissed her cheek absent-mindedly as if nothing were amiss. But Laura saw it now, the performance. The mask he wore. She studied him as he poured a glass of whiskey. His movements practiced, his smile too casual. Did he have any idea that his secrets were unraveling? Did he think she would continue playing the dutiful wife, blind to the life he was crafting elsewhere? Laura's rage simmered beneath the surface, but she said nothing. Not yet. Instead, she bided her time, watching, waiting, collecting every lie like evidence in a trial that was coming. Late that night, when Michael had drifted off to sleep beside her, Laura sat in the dim glow of her laptop, digging deeper into the financial trail. The further she went, the darker it became. She found payments for a storage unit in another part of town, transfers labeled with cryptic notes. And then a document buried in her email land automated alert she had overlooked. Weeks earlier, it was confirmation of property purchased under Michael's name. Not just any property, but a small house, the very same address she had visited the day before. The apartment wasn't temporary. It wasn't just support. Michael had bought a home for Sophia and the boy. The realization crushed her. He wasn't merely balancing two lives. He had chosen one. And Laura was the expendable piece. The chapter he was trying to close. Tears blurred her vision, but her resolve only sharpened. She would not be discarded like a footnote. Not after everything she had sacrificed. Every year she had devoted to their marriage, the time for silence was ending. The next morning, Laura looked in the mirror and hardly recognized the woman staring back, her eyes swollen from tears, her jaw tight with fury. For 20 years, she had been Michael's loyal partner, the foundation of their family. But now she was something else. She was the storm he never saw coming. Laura rehearsed a dozen different confrontations in her head before Michael came home that evening. Each version ended the same way, her screaming, him denying, the house echoing. With shattered trust, but when she finally saw him walk through the door, briefcase in hand, smile practiced. Everything inside her went silent. She had decided. This time, there would be no screaming. This time, she would control the narrative. Dinners. Ready? She said softly, setting plates on the table. Her tone was even, almost pleasant. Michael glanced at her, surprised, but said nothing. They ate in near silence, the clinking of silverware filling the room. Laura studied him the way a detective studies a suspect, every twitch of his eyebrow, every pause before he answered. When the meal ended, she placed her fork down carefully and met his eyes. "Michael," she said, her voice calm but unyielding, "how long were you planning to lie to me?" His fork froze midair. For a fraction of a second, panic flickered across his face. Before he replaced it with practiced confusion. "What are you talking about?" Laura reached beneath the table and pulled out the folder she had prepared. Neatly arranged inside were the printed bank statements, photos Sophia had given her, and the property documents she had unearthed. She laid them in front of him one by one like evidence in a trial. At first, Michael tried to laugh it off. "This is ridiculous. You don't know what you're looking at." But Laura's glare cut through him. "Stop lying. I've seen the transactions. I've seen the house." Oh. Silence dropped between them like a stone. Michael's shoulders slumped, his carefully built facade collapsing in an instant. He pressed his hands over his face, then muttered, almost inaudible, "You weren't supposed to find out this way." Laura's chest tightened. That single admission felt heavier than any denial. "So it's true," she whispered, "all of it." Michael didn't answer immediately. Instead, he poured himself another drink, downed it in a single gulp, then sat heavily in his chair. "Yes," he finally said. "It's true. I've been seeing her. The boy is mine." The words sliced through her, but Laura held herself steady. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of watching her crumble. And the bank accounts, the lawyer, the house. She pressed. Michael hesitated, then nodded. "I was preparing to leave. Let's make it official. Just didn't know how to tell you." Laura let out a bitter laugh, one that didn't sound like her own voice. 20 years of marriage, and you couldn't find the words. For a moment, guilt flickered across his face. "You don't understand." "No, Michael, I understand perfectly." She cut in, her voice sharp now, finally rising. "You built another life, another home, and all this time, you've been standing in this one." Pretending not, Michael reached across the table, his voice suddenly pleading, "Laura, please, it's not as simple as you think." But she pulled her hand back. "Don't you dare insult me with excuses. I've seen enough." For a long, heavy moment, the room was thick with tension. Michael opened his mouth as if to say more, then closed it again. He looked at her with eyes that held something beyond guilt, something he wasn't ready to confess. Laura noticed it, that flicker of fear, that guarded hesitation. And that was when she realized there was still something he hadn't told her. The betrayal she uncovered was devastating, yes, but it wasn't the full story. The hidden accounts, the divorce attorney. The property, those were only pieces of a much larger puzzle. As Michael sat there, broken but not fully honest, Laura felt the shift inside herself. The woman who once begged for answers was gone. In her place was someone sharper, stronger, ready to dig until every secret was dragged into the light. She rose from her chair, gathering the folder back into her hands. "This isn't over," she said coldly. "You may have built a second life, Michael, but I will uncover every lie you've buried. And when I do, you'll wish you had told me the truth tonight." Michael's face paled, his lips parting as if to stop her. But no words came. Laura turned and walked away, her heart pounding, her body trembling. Behind her, Michael sat frozen, gripping his glass with white knuckles. And in that silence, one thing became terrifyingly clear. Whatever truth he was hiding, it was far worse than infidelity. Laura barely slept that night. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, every nerve in her body alive with a mixture of rage and dread. Michael's confession should have been the climax, but instead it felt like only the surface of something much darker. The way he froze when she said, "I've seen enough," the flicker of fear in his eyes haunted her by dawn. She knew she couldn't stop. She had opened Pandora's box, and now she needed to see every monster that crawled out. While Michael showered, Laura returned to his briefcase. Her fingers trembled as she sifted through documents, receipts, and scraps of notes. Most were mundane meeting reminders, invoices, but tucked at the bottom was a small, worn leather notebook. It wasn't the kind Michael usually carried. This one looked older, almost hidden deliberately. She flipped through it. Inside, she found handwritten entries, names, dates, and numbers that didn't match the bank statements she already had. There were cash withdrawals, deposits in different accounts, and cryptic notes like D paid, keep separate, and transfer after shipment. Her pulse quickened. This wasn't just about supporting another family. Something bigger was at play. When Michael stepped out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, Laura quickly tucked the notebook beneath a pile of laundry. She smiled faintly, masking her nerves. "I'll drive Daniel to school," she said casually, though her mind was already racing. The moment she dropped their son off, Laura drove to Sophia's house. Her sister's eyes widened when she saw the notebook. "This isn't a fair, money," Sophia whispered after flipping through the pages. "These are coded transactions. Look, see the repetition. This looks like laundering." Laura's stomach turned. "Money laundering? Michael? That doesn't make sense." Sophia met her gaze gravely. "Doesn't it? Think about it. Why all the secrecy? Why multiple accounts under different names? He didn't just betray you, Laura. He might be involved in something criminal." Laura felt her legs weaken. It was one thing to be cheated on. It was another to realize the man she had shared her life with might be breaking laws that could destroy their family entirely. "I have to know," Laura said firmly. "I can't confront him again until I know the truth." Sophia hesitated, then leaned closer. "If you keep digging, you need to be careful. Men who hide money like this, they don't always play fair. And if he realizes you've seen too much..." The warning sent a chill through Laura, but she pushed the fear aside. She had already crossed the line that afternoon. While Michael was at work, Laura visited the bank listed in one of the notebook entries, posing as someone verifying a wire transfer. She slipped just enough information to coax clerk into confirming that the account belonged to a shell company registered under Michael's name. Her breath caught. A shell company. He wasn't just hiding savings. He was funneling money through fake businesses. She left the bank in a daze. Questions pummeled her mind. Was Michael embezzling from his job? Was he tied to something worse, smuggling, fraud, even organized crime? Every scenario was more terrifying than the last. That evening, she tried to act normal, but every word out of Michael's mouth sounded like a lie. When he kissed her cheek goodnight, she had to fight the urge to recoil. Lying. Awake again. Laura clutched the leather notebook to her chest. One thought echoed relentlessly. If Michael is capable of this, then what else is he hiding? And then came the most chilling realization of all. If Michael was willing to build a secret life, to deceive her for years, to create false companies and hidden accounts, then what would he do to protect those secrets now that she had discovered them? Laura turned toward the dark silhouette of her husband sleeping beside her. For the first time in her marriage, she felt truly unsafe in her own bed. Laura woke with a start at 3 a.m., heart pounding in her chest. Something had pulled her from uneasy dreams, a noise, faint but deliberate. She sat up and listened. House was quiet, except for the steady hum of the refrigerator downstairs. Beside her, Michael's side of the bed was empty. Fear coiled in her stomach. She slipped out of bed, tiptoeing toward the faint glow seeping under the office door. Pressing her ear against it, she heard the rapid clatter of keyboard strokes. Michael's voice murmured low, tense, as if he were on a call. Laura's hand tightened around the doorknob, but she didn't dare turn it. Instead, she strained to catch fragments of his words. Transfer has to be complete before Friday. No, it. Can't look suspicious? Yes, she doesn't know. Laura's breath hitched. He was talking about her. She backed away silently, retreating to the bedroom before he could catch her. Slipping under the covers, she forced her body to still, her breathing too slow. Moments later, Michael returned, his face unreadable in the dim light. He slid into bed beside her, but Laura kept her eyes closed, terrified that if he saw her awake, he might sense what she had overheard. By morning, she had made her decision. She couldn't keep this to herself any longer. After dropping Daniel at school, she drove straight to Sophia's office. "He's hiding more than money," Laura whispered, her hands trembling. "I think he's working with someone. Heard him last night. He mentioned a transfer. He said she doesn't know. He was talking about me." Sophia paled. "Laura, you have to go to the police." "I can't," Laura shot back. "Not yet. What if I don't have enough proof? What if they dismiss it? Michael finds out I tried to expose him. I need to be careful. Need to be smart." Sophia hesitated, then pulled out her phone. "At least let me connect you with someone I trust. An old friend, Detective Harris. He can look at what you have and tell you if it's serious." Laura reluctantly agreed. That evening, she met Harris at a quiet cafe. She handed him the notebook, the copied bank statements, and described what she had overheard. The detective's brow furrowed deeper with every page he read. "You were right to come forward," he said at last. "These aren't just hidden funds. This looks like Michael is acting as a middleman, funneling money through shell companies for clients who don't want the IRS or anyone else to know where it comes from." Laura swallowed hard. "So he's laundering money?" "Almost certainly. And given the amounts the people he's working with, they won't take kindly to anyone snooping around." Harris leaned closer. "If he even suspects you know the full extent, you could be in danger." The words chilled her more than she expected. Danger, not heartbreak. Niger, Laura tried to act normal again. But Michael studied her with unusual intensity, as if searching for cracks in her mask. "Rough day?" he asked, his tone casual, but his eyes sharp. Laura forced a smile. "Just errands and Daniel's schoolwork. You know how it is." But as she turned away, she felt his gaze linger too long. A prickle of dread crawled up her spine. Over the next days, small things began to shift. Michael changed his phone password. He locked his briefcase. He grew quieter, more watchful. Laura couldn't shake the feeling that he knew she was hiding something too. Then, one evening, she found something that made her blood run cold. She was gathering laundry when a folded envelope slipped from Michael's jacket pocket. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a wire transfer receipt. The destination account wasn't overseas, it was local. And the name on it wasn't a stranger's. It was Sophia Carter, Laura's sister. Her mind reeled. Why would Michael be transferring money to her own sister? Was Sophia in on this? Or worse, had Sophia been manipulating Laura from the start? The notebook, the warnings, the detective's suddenly every memory twisted in her mind. Laura sank onto the edge of the bed, clutching the receipt, her world tilting violently. The betrayal she thought was confined to her husband might stretch further than she ever imagined. For the first time, she realized she might not even know who to trust anymore. Laura sat frozen on the edge of the bed, the receipt crumpled in her trembling hands. Sophia's name stared back at her in bold black ink. Undeniable. Her sister. The one person she had confided in, trusted, leaned on through this nightmare. Her. Chest constricted, breath shallow. She wanted to deny it, to believe it was some kind of coincidence or mistake. But the truth pressed against her ribs like a blade. Michael wasn't hiding money from Sophia. He was funneling it to her. That night, Laura barely slept. She watched the ceiling until dawn, her mind spiraling with questions. Was Sophia involved in the laundering? Had she orchestrated Laura's suspicions to keep her distracted? Or worse, was she working with Michael all along? By morning, Laura had decided she needed answers. She drove straight to Sophia's house. Storming up the porch steps before her sister could even greet her, Laura shoved the receipt into Sophia's hands. Explain this. Sophia's face drained of color, her lips parted, but no words came. Explain. Laura's voice cracked under the weight of betrayal. Finally, Sophia whispered, I was trying to protect you. Laura's laugh came out sharp, bitter. Protect me. By taking money from my husband behind my back? Do you think I'm stupid? Sophia's hands shook as she gripped the receipt. Laura, you don't understand. Michael came to me months ago. He said you were spending too much, that you couldn't handle the finances. He said if he kept everything in your name, the authorities might come after you if things went wrong. He told me the safest way was to use me as a middleman to hold money in accounts. He COULDN single quotes T. Laura staggered back, her fury colliding with horror. You agreed? Sophia's eyes glistened. I thought I was protecting you. I thought if anyone ever came looking, they'd stop with me, not drag you into it. I didn't realize how deep it was. I didn't know about the laundering until recently, and by then, it was too late. But Laura couldn't tell if the tears were guilt or manipulation before she could press further. A shadow moved across the Estelle moved. A shadow moved across. Window. A familiar voice slid through the air like poison. She knows, Michael said coldly, stepping inside without knocking. Laura's heart plummeted. He must have followed her. Michael's eyes darted to the receipt in Sophia's hands, then back to Laura. His expression hardened into something she had never seen before, something dangerous. All this time, said, his voice eerily calm, I thought you were the perfect wife, loyal, trustworthy. But you just couldn't leave it alone, could you? Laura backed away, her pulse hammering. You lied to me? You lied to both of us, Michael sneered. I did what I had to. Do you think this house, your car, Daniel's private school, any of it was possible on my salary alone? You like the life? Laura, you just never asked where it came from. Sophia stepped between them, her voice trembling. Michael, stop. This isn't the way. But Michael's eyes darkened. You're as guilty as I am, Sophia. Don't pretend you didn't enjoy the money. Laura's mind raced. If Michael truly believed they were both liabilities, what would he do now? At that moment, a sharp knock shattered the tension. The front door swung open and Detective Harris stepped inside, flanked by two uniformed officers. Michael Bennett. Harris's voice boomed. You're under arrest for money laundering, fraud, and conspiracy. Michael's face twisted with fury. He lunged toward Laura, but the officers restrained him, forcing him to the ground as they dragged him out in handcuffs. Michael's eyes locked on hers one last time. "You'll regret this, Laura," he spat. "You have no idea what you've started." The words lingered like venom long after he was gone. Laura collapsed onto the couch, shaking. Sophia knelt beside her, tears streaking down her face. "I'm sorry, Laura. I thought I was helping. I never meant for it to go this far." But Laura couldn't answer. Her trust in her husband was gone. Her trust in her sister shattered. All she had left was Daniel-land, the fragile hope that, somehow, she could rebuild their lives from the ashes days later. Laura stood at the kitchen window, watching her son play in the yard. The house felt emptier than ever, but quieter, safer. She knew the road ahead would be hard court hearings, financial loss, endless questions. And she knew she might never forgive Sophia. Not completely, but as she wrapped her arms around Daniel when he ran inside, Laura whispered a silent promise. No more secrets, not ever again. And for the first time in months, she felt like she could. Breathe. Life often teaches us that the deepest betrayals don't always come from strangers. Sometimes they come from the very people we trust the most, those we let into our homes, our hearts, and our lives. Laura's story is a painful reminder that secrets have a way of surfacing, no matter how carefully they're hidden, she thought. She knew her husband. She thought she could rely on her sister. But in the end, she discovered that the truth doesn't just shatter illusions, it forces us to rebuild from the ground up. And yet, there's another lesson here: resilience. Even in the darkest moments, Laura found the strength to protect her son and choose honesty over silence. That's what makes stories like this so powerful. They remind us that while we can't always control what others do, we can control how we respond. If this story moved you, if it made you reflect on trust, loyalty, and the fragile bonds of family, we ask you to take a moment and join our community here at Real Moments. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next story, because every week we bring you real, raw, unforgettable tales that explore the human heart in all its beauty and its flaws. Give this video a like if you believe that truth, no matter how painful, is always better than living in lies. And share it with someone who might need the reminder that secrets can destroy, but honesty can heal. Finally, we'd love to hear from you. Has there ever been a time in your life when you discovered something shocking about someone close to you? How did it change the way you saw them and yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments. Remember, every story matters. And sometimes, the hardest stories to tell are the ones that teach us the most. So stay with us, stay strong, and never stop seeking the truth.